Welcome back, everybody, to Flight Path. We have an incredible episode for you today. My name is David Shull, CEO and co-founder, joined as always by Brad Turner, head of design, and Jade Path, head of product. And we have an incredibly exciting episode for you. This is your first time tuning in. You have arrived to the absolute best place to stay up to date on all things Tern. We're the only platform in the travel industry that is shipping significant updates every single week based on your feedback. And this is the place that you get to hear the kind of behind the scenes look on how it's all unfolding, what we're building, what's coming next. And so we really think this is one of the best podcasts for your business. So if you want to stay up to date, click the like button, click the subscribe button, make sure you kind of tick the bell to get the latest updates. And we're going to jump in. On today's docket, we have a bunch of updates on how we're investing in user feedback. We're doing a whole bunch of new features on the agency side, 2 of which have already launched, and Jade's going to take us through that. And we've got some big news about our users conference. So it's going to be an action-packed kind of 20 or 30 minutes. Brad, Jade, welcome back to the podcast. How we doing?
We're good. It's been an action-packed week in addition to being an action-packed podcast. So running on fumes, but we've got so many cool things we did this week that we're excited to talk about.
Yeah.
It has been a busy week, but so much to share. So
much to share. Yeah, we were just saying, like, I'm battling a cold, not enough sleep. We're going to keep the energy up here because we got a lot to talk about. So one of the big things that we wanted to kind of share with folks is just like the kind of ever-changing way that we think about prioritization and kind of how we weight things. And so, Brad, do you want to kind of talk about how we've shifted focus a little bit over the next couple of weeks and what folks can kind of expect to see us really kind of emphasizing?
Yeah, for sure. And maybe just to take people behind the scenes a little bit, we our approach generally for product planning, like when we think about how we're investing in the product, we have a lovely spreadsheet that Molly put together that has like kind of week over week what we generally think we're going to be working on. And like for the next month or so, normally we have a really good idea. Beyond that, it's like a rough, like, oh, we're going to make these types of investments. And what we realized over the past week or so is that we had a lot of new features on that roadmap prioritized for like things like groups and at the agency level. And we were having a hard time fitting in all the feedback that we have in our feedback tool and other places that we knew was really important, but just like wasn't being prioritized as much in there. So what we ended up doing was actually pushing back some of those other things on the roadmap in the spreadsheet related to some groups improvements and spreading out some of the agency improvements so that we could make sure we're elevating more of the feedback we're getting just on the product that exists today. We know like not everything is perfect in Tern. It's not optimized for how each individual business works. And so we're going to be taking some time over the next couple of months to elevate that feedback even more, to invest in it and make sure we have a better balance of both new features that we're going to continue to introduce and also improvements for the things that already exist, but just have those little pain points in there that if we fix them are going to make using Tern like even better for you and your business.
And these trade-offs are like so, I'm excited to kind of get into just the list because we're already seeing people be pretty excited about what this will mean for the day-to-days. But just to kind of bring these trade-offs to life a little bit, it's so easy to be like, we want to add new features, right? Because like literally every single day, all of us on the podcast, most of the team are getting emailed from people being like, I can't switch until you have this, or I can't move my agency over until you have this, right? Like it feels really big. It feels really urgent. And it makes it easy to start to say like, oh, well, like, can that rough edge wait a little bit, right? Can it wait a little bit? And you always have that sort of tension. And that's to Brad's point where we said this week, like, okay, we will always have more to build. We have such big ambitions for this product. If you really want to build the all-in-one platform for advisors, for agencies, for host agencies, you're going to be building for a while. And so we need to carve out these really intentional kind of seasons of polish. And so, Brad, do you want to kind of talk about some of the things that have already shipped and just kind of how we're thinking about that?
Yeah, so we already this week made a bunch of progress on some things that might seem small in our terms, like, oh, that was like pretty easy to do internally, but have a bit like people get real hype about these things in Facebook and in our feedback tool. So the first thing that I think people are going to be really excited to hear is that on a trip request form or a group sign up form now, on traveler details, birthday is now required. No more travelers skipping over that field and you having to go chase them down later and make sure they fill that out. That'll be required on all those forms going forward. And then there's also a slot to ask for their middle name at sign up. So we know That was also another thing that was missing. If you need their actual legal name in order to book them on the trip, and there was nowhere for them to put their middle name before there without sending them a separate form or reaching out for them for those details. So that should be a huge time saver, just to cut out the things that we heard most often, people having to go back and ask for additional information. There's still a long list of improvements we're hoping to make to forms over time, but like those two things we're hoping will save a bunch of time already, just right off the bat. And then I don't want to like rant the whole time. We've got so many cool things. So
let's just hype about that for a second. I mean, like, that is, yeah. I mean, it's been so. This was like in the Facebook group. I saw 3 different posts, like many likes within minutes, right? Because like, yeah, it was painful. Somebody fills out the form. You're like, cool. Like, they just signed up. They literally want me to book this, but now I gotta go back to them and be like, yeah, I kind of need your birthday, because every cruise line, airline, travel supplier like needs your birthday so I can validate your identity. And it wasn't required, so you didn't fill it out. Like, so yeah, we were talking about like hours of time savings for like a group trip. So it's pretty exciting.
This was one of the first pieces of feedback on the group's webinar. I remember this is one of the first like pieces of feedback that we heard that I was a part of. So it's really exciting to see that come full circle. And I think it speaks to this prioritization. Like, we did a huge push on groups and kind of weren't spending as much time on some of these smaller like user feedback pieces, but then it comes back to still like supporting the group's product overall when we think about bringing these back into the roadmap. So it really all, ends up fitting together.
Yeah. And then in addition to that big change, which I think people are really excited about, we've got a few smaller things that will be good workflow improvements. So we actually upgraded a little bit of our editor in Tern. We did not do the full revamp that we're moving toward eventually.
Settle down, everyone. It's not there yet. Settle down.
Yeah, these fixed what was a really frustrating experience if you tried to copy like a chunk of text and images from another website and paste them in, you'd get all these errors for all the images you tried to paste in. And so we did fix that so that most images now, when copied from another website, should paste and not show an error. And then those errors aren't going to be like throwing off the rest of your editing experience. So that should be hopefully a significant improvement and time saver to not have to like go individually copy and paste every image in the way you had to do it before. If there's additional things like that still aren't working, like weird image types or something, definitely flag them for us and we can investigate like what additional improvements we might be able to make there before we do like a larger upgrade around the editor. And then another small little one, we heard some people not realize or had a hard time knowing like which documents were actually visible to travelers or not. So we just updated the table where we show documents to make it more clear. It's now a visibility column that says advisor only or traveler. So it should be much easier now for you to scan and notice like, oh, this one's not shared. I need to go and make that visible to my travelers on their trip for their itinerary. And those are one other small client-facing improvement is on the itinerary. If you wanted to view more details about an activity, you had to actually like find the view. I think literally the button's just called view details, and it's like a link for each individual activity. But what people most often do, if you're used to browsing the internet, is just click on the title or the picture and expect it to open up more details. We didn't do that before. Now we do. Super simple, but yeah, that should actually make it much easier now, especially on mobile. Like that's really the pattern you're used to, is just like tapping to open without having to click on a specific little button. So that should also make it better for your clients to make sure they can easily find more details about their trip. Anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I was emailing with somebody who was kind of talking about, they had used Tern, I think it was like 8 months ago. And they're like, my clients like didn't know if they liked it as much as what I was using before. And I was like, you got to get another shot, right? Because it is such a different client experience than it was even really 6 months ago, like with the new itinerary layout, with a lot of these little changes in terms of just like how intuitive Tern is, how easy to use. Of course, the big changes, like we took a 7-step account sign up process to authorize a credit card and we turned it into 1, right? There's all these different things where it's kind of fun. We don't talk about it as much, but the traveler experience, the client experience has really evolved a lot. And you think about the features that we've talked about on the pod around like the optional cabins and the choices and the selections, right? Like that just adds to the kind of magic of the client experience, being able to get this beautiful itinerary, make selections, go right through credit card authorization, and having this kind of like little friction that can leave people feeling frustrated just addressed is really, really cool.
Yeah. And then the last one here, which again might seem small, but actually unlocks like a pretty important use case, I guess, for for planning trips in Tern, is we made some updates to make it so that it's easier for you to collect authorization without having to build out like an entire itinerary in Tern. And I want to demo this and like talk through a little bit more to make sure it's clear what we're changing and what we're not changing. So I'm just going to pull this up super fast. And there we go. So the way this will work now today in Tern, let's say you have an itinerary from a tour operator or something where they send you a link and it's like, here's this itinerary that's going to be great for your clients. And you're like, oh, cool. I want to share this with my clients and like have them authorize the deposit so I can get them in. And then like later on, I'll worry about copying, pasting, building that all out in Tern. But like, I just want to like get that locked in and make sure I'm collecting that authorization. What we heard from folks is like, okay, I could use AI, but like that also isn't perfect. Like I kind of just want to send them to that other link, but still have them authorize in Tern. How do I do that? And we didn't really have a great answer for them before, but I'll show you now what you can do. So today, what you can do now in Tern is if you go to the pricing tab, instead of this saying, hey, you can't do anything until you add activities, now you can just add a package right away on the pricing tab. So I don't have anything on the itinerary yet, but I do have pricing here. And so I can click new package and I can put the basic details in here of things I'll need to get authorization for. So it's like a just, I don't know, tour package, title it whatever you want. You can put in the total price. You could still collect like a deposit versus final balance. And you could select your supplier. And then that will right away be ready for authorization. And then what you can do, again, instead of having to build out a whole itinerary, is just in the itinerary details, you can include the basic description of the trip and a link to that itinerary wherever it already exists today. And so then you could also include in there, like when you're ready to confirm after you've reviewed that, go ahead and authorize by clicking the button in Tern. And what that will look like for your clients is if they view a trip like this, again, you have your rich text description you put in here. You didn't build out the whole itinerary yet, but you can still share that trip with them, add the link to it. The pricing will still be right here in Tern. You can see the package price, the different deposit versus final balance, and then they can go up here and authorize that initial package. And of course, you could have cancellation policy and terms and conditions in here too. Just didn't add that for the demo. And then once they authorize, once they give you that deposit, now you can invest the time to actually go and build out their full itinerary for them in Tern to make sure that they have everything there when they go to travel, they need to check in, like see different details coming up for their trip. That can then live in Tern, but you don't have to invest all that work before you're sure if your clients are actually going to book the thing in the first place. So just another way you can think about kind of proposing trip options in Tern.
Wow.
So cool. and it's like such a cool example. Brad and I were on a call with an agency owner, and you were kind of explaining this exact workflow, and we're kind of like, yeah, like that is kind of hard today. And by hard, we mean like we don't have an answer. And Brad highlights it's like probably trivial for an engineer to add the button to like add the package, and now this entire workflow is enabled in a way that's like pretty magical. Enables kind of the team to still use that kind of authorization flow, but doesn't require the kind of full build out of the itinerary. So I think there's all kinds of like really cool implications of this, especially when you're working with the DMC or a tour operator. So really fun to see kind of the impact of these like smaller changes, but that have like a big impact already coming to life.
Yeah.
Jade, do you want to maybe switching gears here a little bit? So, well, actually, wait, before we switch gears, we have like some big plans that we're going to tease, I think, before we talk about the agency updates.
Yeah, just a few other small things. We're going to split out date and time so that you don't have to have time for an activity. It doesn't default to midnight. And there's going to be immediate triggers on automations. And we'll talk about it next week.
And just, casual behind the scenes re-architecting of, dates and times, which are pretty trivial in travel, right? So it should be easy. We'll talk about it next week. Jade, agency stuff, that's evolved, right? What's going on there?
I think what's going to be more, it's going to be really interesting to see what's more exciting required birthday, optional dates and times, or those immediate triggers. I think it's going to be
It's going to be high.
a tough
But my money's on optional date and time, just because we're going to talk about like dog food when we get to the users conference, which is like a funny tech term the more you think about it. But like I was building out a itinerary for we're going to the Asta River cruise in Vienna, and I was like, oh, I'll do a couple days in Vienna before that. And I was like, oh, we'll do these hikes, and I was just like, yeah, this is it. Like this is why people are frustrated. I'm like, our hikes are all at midnight. Like and so yeah, I think my bet's on that.
Well, yeah, David's looking the most forward to optional dates and times. But it's really amazing that including all of those updates that we just talked about, we also launched 2 big agency features. So we launched the ability to add adjustments both to agent payouts and to any statements in the system. And then we also launched a new commission settings page, which right now has a default payout date included, but is going to evolve over the next couple of weeks. So I'll go ahead and jump into the product and actually show you what these look like. We launched adjustments this morning, and we launched the commission settings yesterday. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so for adjustments, I'm going to go into commission here at the top, and I'm going to go in first. We'll look at the agent payout portion of adjustments. So I'll open up agent payouts. I'm actually going to filter to a particular agent here, Katie Williams. Some of you might know her. And I'm going to go ahead and open up anything that's ready to be paid out for this particular agent. And you can see, I have my total here at the top. I can take a look and scan this information. And now I have this option to actually add an adjustment at the top of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and add an adjustment. This can be a positive or a negative value, depending on if it's a fee or a bonus or some other type of payment. Let's go ahead and add a negative amount here. And we'll give this a name for an unclaimed booking fee. We can add our agent who we were just searching for there, make sure that the type is correct. So if that's a fee or a bonus, I'll make it a fee in this case. Can add notes to let this agent know potentially that, to avoid this in the future, exactly what steps they need to take to avoid it, or congratulate them if it's a bonus. And then so you can set the eligible payout date and eventually mark this as paid. But let's go ahead and save and close this adjustment. We can see that that's now added to this agent's list of payouts. And then we can go about the next steps here. Maybe that's exporting all of these payments that are ready. Maybe that's marking them as paid. Or we can add an additional adjustment. Maybe this agent or another agent also hit a sales milestone. So really flexible, and these adjustments don't need to be tied to a specific booking. So you can make sure that you're adding all the payments or fees that you need to for your agents. Anything to add on the agent payout side before I jump into statements?
No, nailed it.
Okay. So statements is the other side where we've made some improvements to adjustments. So here, I'll go ahead and add a statement. Let's go ahead and add a statement from Hyatt this month. We'll go ahead and make this $5,000, and we'll create the statement. So now, as usual, you can see all of your bookings that you can add, but we have this option now to also add an adjustment directly for a statement. So you can add an adjustment, again, positive or negative value. Maybe there's a sales milestone for the agent that we were just looking at. So let's do a sales bonus here for January. And we'll add our supplier, our agent, Katie. We'll keep this one as bonus now. Can again add a note here with the details and add our split, eligible for payout. And again, you can mark that as paid. Once we save that, you'll see it now in this adjustment section, and you'll see it reflected up at the top with the reconciliation information. You can also,
that note, is that visible to the agents as well, or is that just for the agency owner?
That note is also visible to the agent on their side. So when they're looking at their payouts, they can open up the information and see those notes that you've added. You can also add adjustments that are not connected to an agent. So if you have an adjustment coming in from a supplier for the agency overall, you can go ahead and add that in. No agent required. Let's go ahead and add our details, and we can save and close that. So now we have those 2 adjustments listed, one for the agency overall, one for a particular agent. Again, not tied to a particular booking, but just generally so we can account for all the costs, fees, and adjustments. Anything
So big.
to add here? Yeah, this is huge.
I'm just smiling watching you demo this because I don't know. When I joined Tern, I was like, oh, I'm going to join a travel company. Like, I'm going to be designing itineraries and beautiful things with trips. And like, actually, we're like building financial, accounting software, and it's it's just a different land to be living in. But all of it's so important. Just like think about running a small business. It makes total sense, and I've learned so much about how important the the accounting side of the house is, and including having great trips.
And yeah, it's been a really great learning experience for me. I'm still learning a lot about these workflows. So being a part of some of these really detailed workflows has been really exciting for me because I had no idea how much goes into this and how much detail there is in like truly running a travel business. So it's been really exciting to see like what we can do and how we can better, support these workflows.
And speaking of financial workflows, we've got more on that front, right?
Yep. Even more. So I'm going to go over into my settings now, and then we'll go down. You'll see this new option for commission settings. And so we'll click on commission settings here. As an agency admin, correct, Brad? Only agency admins will see the commission settings tab. There's only one field in here for default payout date. And you can set that to travel start date, travel end date, or commission receive date. If you do set it to travel start date or end date, that's going to delay the payout eligibility to whenever that activity starts or ends. Otherwise, if the travel start date is in the past, for example, or it's missing, we'll default that to the commission receive date. So this should give you flexibility, make sure that all of your accounting is set up correctly. And if we click in, I'll just show you quickly. If we click into commission and we go to bookings here, let's look for our agent, our favorite agent. And if we go down here and I open this up, you can see that the start date is March 23rd. So it's in the future. So when I add a supplier payment here, we'll see the eligible for payout date is bumped into the future, not the date that I'm adding this payment. So.
And kind of the common workflow here, right, is like agencies may get commission from cruise lines at the date of final payment, but the agency may have a policy that they're not going to pay that out until travel's actually happened or started, right? And so this is sort of the first of what we're calling commission rules, which allow agency owners to really define what are the different policies within the agent on how I want to manage this. And so date's one of them. We've got more coming, right? That will really kind of add even more optionality to this, right?
Yeah. Brad, do you want to tell people what's coming on this page in the next week or so?
Yeah. So on your commission settings, on the agency commission settings page, they'll define commission types, which for things like personal travel or agency referral, or if you have like a special promotion you're doing where you're adjusting the amount of commission your agents are getting instead of their standard amount, you can define those things here. And we'll share more details, but that'll be here, and that'll be available to your agents to select from when reporting bookings. If they're not using their standard rate for some reason, if a booking needs a different rate, they can select that easily. And then we're also going to make it so that you can adjust an agent's rate over time, and it will still, their old rate will still apply to bookings made before they're like basically when that rate still applied. Bookings made after that date will use the new rate, things like that. So we're still figuring out the exact way to explain this in a way that's not incredibly confusing. I'm just imagining like all of these noodles through Tern that connect all the commission pieces. But yeah, well, hopefully by next Friday when we talk about it on the podcast, we'll have it nailed down in a super easy, explainable way.
Be perfect, Pitch. Yeah, I was thinking about this. We're kind of talking to the host agency level too, right? And like, I was watching this video of like, okay, well, the host agency is 100%, but then there's the agency, and the agency takes a cut, and then there's the agent. It's like, you have to do the math, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you make that easy, right? How do you make that intuitive is tough because there's a lot of moving pieces. But we're gonna figure it out, and it's gonna be great. So no pressure. Well, as you can see, there's been a lot going on. It really feels like we're kind of getting in the the groove and the rhythm, right? We've got the kind of team. Obviously, it's now almost a full month back from break, last day of January. Like it is really coming to life, and it's going to be really fun to see what February brings. The last big announcement, if you haven't caught this already, is the fact that we launched our users conference this week. And so if you haven't seen it, I'll put the landing page up here. We are going to be on the second ever sailing on the Brilliant Lady with Virgin Voyages, which we're really excited about. Just kind of the energy and kind of, I think just energy, maybe it's the right word, that Virgin kind of brings to the cruising space, we think is a really good fit. We were kind of the behind the scenes. That's what the point of the podcast is. We were like pretty anxious, I think, about this. Like we were super excited about doing a users conference, but we're like, do people like they actually want to come? Like it's a whole week, like it's a lot of time. Like because we don't have a bunch of suppliers. This is a look behind the travel industry curtain for many of you who go to these conferences, and it's great because as agents, it's usually subsidized, right? So it's very affordable. What maybe is less obvious is that when you go to a trade show, the average trade show booth costs between $3,000 and $5,000 per booth for the supplier. Every time you see a supplier speaking on stage, minimum of $30,000. So like that's why it's so affordable. We want this conference to be focused on your business. We want to be focusing on the intersection of technology and how you can actually start to bring practical things home to help sell more, to grow your business, to hire more advisors. And we think that there's so many opportunities to get supplier content that's like not what we want to do. So we were like, okay, we're going to price it pretty much at cost. We will make no money on this. In fact, I think we'll lose quite a bit of money by the time we fly our team out there and everything. But the goal is to bring the Tern community together and to create something that really supercharges you and your business. So we launched this kind of the wait list, we're calling it, because in Tern. And this is something that I mentioned the term dog fooding earlier. This is like a weird tech term. We were explaining this to somebody on the Tern team even. It was like, why do we call it that? But it's like, I guess the idea is like you eat your own dog food so that you like know what it tastes like. It's, again, weird analogy, but the idea is that we're using Tern to run this group. And
it with drink your own champagne.
Drink your own champagne. I like that better. That's right. Yeah. So we're going to rebrand that from dog food. We're drinking our own champagne here by managing the group in Tern. Somebody asked in the Facebook group, are you working with a travel advisor? We are working with a travel advisor. Travel advisor actually that helped build a lot of the group's product, has run huge groups through Tern before. So they're helping with the negotiation with Virgin. But we're also trying to make sure that we're like involved because we want to use this as an experience of what you all deal with when you manage groups. And so we've learned a lot of very real things. For example, we have in the wait list basically sold out of our capacity very quickly. We've over 230 people, I think, that have expressed interest or cabins worth of interest for this. We've had 150 cabins. We extended that with Virgin. And so just how do you export all this to be able to run reports and make communications is like an example of like, it's kind of tough to do that in Tern. So we want to make sure that we're not just farming all of this out. We want to feel what you all feel when you manage groups of this size. And the other thing that we'll be kind of building and using this as a test case for is like payments. So something we get asked by a lot of people who manage groups is they need the ability to actually process travel dollars. As we've talked about in the podcast before, there's a huge amounts of complexity that goes into that. And so rather than build something and ship it and have that kind of learn on other people's businesses, we'll learn on ours. And so that's why this is a wait list and we haven't actually launched the formal booking yet, is that we wanted to make sure that the interest was there before we sign a very, very large contract with Virgin. And then we will kind of roll out and build the payment architecture here. So current goal is that kind of mid to late February, we'll open up formal bookings, but based on the interest, we are definitely 100% making this happen. We're so excited about it. And it is going to be, I think, the conference of the year. We're going to have, it's really been fun, even just seeing people on our networks who are going to be incredible speakers kind of agree to come and do this at cost for them so that they can kind of bring their content. It's going to be really, really cool. I'm super excited about it. But we've got a lot to figure out. So there is still time to join the waitlist. The way that this will work, if you haven't joined the waitlist, you can still do that. If you have friends or folks that want to do that, the waitlist is basically going to be who we email first when bookings open. And so if you're on the wait list, you will get the email at the same time as everybody else, letting you that booking's open. And then it will be first come, first serve when we can actually start to process payments. And so you will want to keep an eye on your inbox. We'll try and give everybody a heads up on the date that we expect to officially open up bookings once we know that. But we do sort of expect this to sell out. we will likely, assuming it all goes well, do it again in 2026. And we will likely try and find a location with even bigger capacity based on the interest of this year. So, Brad, Jane, anything you want to add? Excited?
I just love that you still your agency is still loving a suitcase on this.
I know.
You're
still haven't updated it.
Still here.
Still haven't updated it. Brad pointed this out to me yesterday. I think I was traveling, and he's like, "I love that it's like still loving a suitcase. I kind of thought you'd change that to maybe like Tern." And I'm like, I did not think about it. I'm so used to demoing with this love in a suitcase, which was kind of the travel blog I started before we did Tern, which is dormant now, but it's sort of been my go-to like name. And now it's there. So I will eventually rebrand that. It's Tern that is organizing this, not love in a suitcase. But that's the funny story. All right. Well, thank you. That's all we've got. That's our show for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you found this valuable, we do this every single Friday where we talk about what we built, what we've shipped, what's coming, news with Tern. So if you do find this helpful, go ahead and click on that subscribe button. Make sure you get notified when these episodes go live. Generally, we aim to have them kind of late Friday afternoon on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. We also post them to our website. So if you want to watch the video version and you want to deal with the YouTube ads, you can watch them on the website ad-free. You've got lots of options for how you can kind of subscribe to FlightPath. But thanks for tuning in. We will see you all next week.
See ya.